from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Good evening and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Friday night. We are live, and that State of the Union, man, you heard a portion of it last night that we carried live. And let me tell you, there was so much to take in, and the responses and all of that. We're going to get into a lot of it, as well as a couple of other topics. But one of the things that, I mean, there were so many things, right? If you're following me on social media, at Rich Valdez with an S, you saw some of my commentary on when he called Laken Riley Lincoln. I think that was the moment, right? Because from what I saw, it was like a metamorphosis, right? In Spanish, at least for the Puerto Ricans, when somebody's really angry, they say, "Que está en fuego now." Right, and this is very angry, very ticked off. And that was Biden shouting and coming in with this high, angry energy. And he was, yelling at everybody. And then it was like the coffee ran out, like whatever coffee, little cafecito that he was having right before, like I do right before the show, it wore off. And he started, it's like me during the last segment of Open Phone America. I'm more like this. All right, thanks for your call. You slow down a little bit. But it was, we caught it in real time. And he said, I don't know if I could be a winner. If I could, he just, that was just one of the big moments for me. And I said, oh my goodness. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, she wasted no time with expert timing like a radio person. She said, it's about Laken Riley. It was terrific. And I will play that audio for you. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, and you've probably watched it online a couple hundred times. And we're going to do it again because it's a lot of fun. But there were so many other instances. Like, for example, starting off with Ukraine. I don't particularly care what he starts off with, but I think you want to start off with something strong and something that matters to the people. And this is one of those things where, listen, I'm as pro-Ukraine as it comes, right? I am not a fan of Putin. I know there's a lot of my friends in the conservative movement that are very pro-Putin. I call them what do I call them? I forget what I call them. Anyway, I call them the pro-Putin patriots. That's what I call them. Anyway, because I have my own issues with Putin. But my point is, there's a lot of people that are pro-Putin, and I myself am not. I do favor Ukraine. I want to see Ukraine win this war because it's a proxy war of our country, and that means we win. But I also don't want to see it funded forever and ever and ever. Amen. I mean, that would be lunacy, right? So there was so much of that, going on where it was like, man, that was nuts. What is going on in this world? So we're going to get into a lot of that reaction. We're also going to have a chat on a few different things because, the media is out of control. And they really are. I mean, there's things that I saw in the media and I thought, what is going on here? What is going on? And even something we talked about the other day, right? It's just a great example of Trump giving his comments at the Super Tuesday victory speech. And Rachel Maddow cutting away and saying, well, it's part of we can't have him lying on our air. Says who? So many people lie on their air. If you want to call him out, you can. I mean, if he's not your guest in studio, then you call him out when he's done. I mean, even if you want to do it on the fly, if he says something and you think it's wrong, you could do like he does. Wrong. Lies. You could do that, and then once that segment is over, or that piece of audio or video that they're carrying of Trump is over, she can come back in and say, here's why former President Trump said X, Y, and Z, and I disagree with that, and I think he's being dishonest for this. I think that's how you do it. I don't think you necessarily just go, well, I think he's lying, and because I think he's lying, I'm not going to play that. No, I don't know. I guess I see things so differently. You give me some audio where they lie, and I have a field day. I say, give me 3 minutes of it. I'm going to stop it every 30 seconds and give you my mind and go back. I think that's how you have the conversation, because you can invite and invite and invite. And lamentably, a lot of people don't want to come. I've been inviting AOC on this program since 2018. I guess in April, it'll be 6 years. And she's never accepted. I saw her once in real life. She did the dip, literally ran away. So what am I to do? All I could do is rely on some audio or video of her and react to what I hear her saying. But yet the media, they're on a different page. They really are. They're on the page where they want to tell you what to think, what to believe, how to do. And that's not what free thinkers do. That's not what Americans do, right? I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think it's important to kind of underscore that point, because who died and made them my brain? Who died and made them the arbiters of truth? I don't think that they're the arbiters of truth. I think they're there to report. If they want to call you a liar, they can. Anyway, then there's the takeover in Hollywood, right? And there's a lot going on, right? There's a new documentary out called Hollywood Takeover. And this film is about how China, the Red Chinese, the Communist Chinese, CCP, how they have a controlling interest in the industry in Hollywood by funding certain projects and making sure that those projects come out a certain way. And makes all the sense in the world. If you know how Mao Zedong or Stalin or the rest of these radical Marxists think, you'll see that this is exactly how they do things. They make sure they can influence absolutely everything. And then on the flip side, they'll go and talk about it. Right? They'll make sure that we are filling our theaters and airwaves and classrooms with things that are destructive to our society, like poison pills. Like, make a movie and make sure that you include every last oppressor, right? So make sure, or every last oppressed group. Make sure you have the LGBT community represented. Make sure you have, minor attracted, whatever it is. Right? You marginalize these groups. You splinter them off. Then you get them to be in their own area, and then you tell them they're oppressed, and then you tell them, hey, we're going to highlight you. We're going to lift you up and exalt you and put you in this film. And this is how they do it. And then they try to normalize this behavior so that these people don't feel ostracized. The whole thing is just so screwy, but that's what they do. And NTD News and actor Kevin Sorbo have put this really good documentary together. So we're going to chat a little bit about that straight ahead. Plus, I also want to talk about, in addition to the State of the Union, I want to talk about how doctors continue to push experimental surgeries on minors. That's still a thing. It's still happening, and we're going to have that discussion. Plus, your calls. It's Friday night. Let your hair down. I want to hear from all of you and get your thoughts on everything we're talking about, plus the State of the Union, all that stuff, on our hotline. You know the number. It's 866-50-JIMBO. That's our legacy line, 866-505-4626. Or you can always call 833-4-VALDEZ. But wanted to give a quick shout out to Jimbo because it's been a while since I've mentioned the legacy line. And like I said, we're going to keep it as long as we can. Anyway, folks, so you got the number. Your calls are welcome if they're on topic in the first couple of hours with respect to what our guests are talking about. Then hour number 3, it's a free-for-all. You can talk about whatever you want. Let's have that conversation. And if you disagree, you get to the front of the line. If you are a brand new caller, we'll also put you to the front of the line. And I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody. It's going to be a really action-packed and pretty quick-moving show tonight. We got a lot of moving parts, so don't miss any part of it. Kick your feet up, get comfortable, turn the volume up, gather the family around the radio like we did back in the days. We're about to do some old-school talk radio magic tonight. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night Rich Valdez.
About the movies that I just love.
Hollywood invented America to the world in the old days.
And as a medium, it's really powerful. But for some, that power isn't used for good.
Our way of life is being censored by the Chinese Communist Party.
They said, we get a lot of our money out of China. Is there any way you could make this movie a little bit more attractive to the Chinese?
Is it really just about money? Are there other parts at stake?
I had friends in Hollywood who said, this will kill your career. You won't get funding. They're afraid of even mentioning one line.
Chinese influence was playing into what we see in U.S. films.
China said, you can't have that in there. And Hollywood listened.
This is insane. This is a joke, right?
We raised our hand and we dove right into it. But over time, all of us have been punched in the nose.
The Chinese Communist Party followed no rules.
What's at stake? The soul of the nation is at stake.
We want indoctrination access to America. They could basically take over America without firing a shot because they control access to our minds.
And we all know that their goal is global domination.
People have been brainwashed without knowing it.
Brainwashing people without knowing it, taking over the United States without firing a single shot. That's exactly what communists have done. That's what hegemony is all about. And we've seen it through the years over and over and over again. Countless examples in history that all lead to death and despair. And excellent trailer. I really enjoyed that. The film was premiered on the 6th. So this is a brand new film, just came out. Kevin Sorbo is leading the charge with narration. NTD News has done a phenomenal job here with Epic TV. And I want to welcome Kevin Sorbo. You know him from Hercules and from a bunch of other television shows and films. God's Not Dead was an excellent one that I saw as well. Kevin Sorbo, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You bet. So tell us about this project. Was this something you guys collaborated on? Was this something that they approached you and said, we'd like you to be involved in it? And you said, absolutely. How did this hatch?
Yeah, they just got a hold of me and said, would you mind if we came out to your house? Because they realized how vocal I am, and I was kind of making fun how China owns the NBA as well as Hollywood. So I think they got word of that through my Twitter account and whatever else I like to go off on. But they came here and, I put in my 2 cents what I know. I see it. I see what's going on. I see the dollar being spent. I mean, I look at Ricky Gervais, and I think for 4 or 5 straight years I had him coming for the Golden Globes, and he laughed at it every single time. He goes, you guys are all fear me. You're all afraid of me. And he really called all these A-list producers, directors, all the big Hollywood suits in the front rows out there and said, you guys are a bunch of whores. If ISIS had a funding account, you'd be the first to sign up. And he's not wrong. I know he's making a joke out of it, but the guy is not wrong. And China has really, really very quietly but very intelligently and very smartly taken over Hollywood, and they bend over backwards because that's where the big money is when you got 1.5 billion people. It is all about money. It's all about money, and it's really selling our soul to a country that wants total domination of us. Because let's face it, the government of China is certainly capitalist, but they rule with an iron hand over its people under the banner of communism. That's just what they do, and they've been doing it for a long, long time.
You know, Kevin Sorbo, I remember seeing documentaries and other interviews of people praising Reagan for propping up and giving platform to John Wayne and others that were very pro-America when he was president of the Screen Actors Guild. And
Sure.
And even himself stating that, he felt like he was holding back communist interests from invading Hollywood. Now, this, again, is around the time that I was 5 years old, so it was happening, late 70s, early 80s. And I'm thinking to myself, if that was afoot back then, how bad is it today?
Oh, it's accelerated on itself. There's no question. I mean, the number of movies. I mean, the biggest one to me that should have brought a lot of attention to people, because I know there was big news outside of the Hollywood circles when Tom Cruise came out with the sequel to Top Gun, the Maverick movie. And they went after, the whole idea that he's wearing a jacket that had the Taiwanese and Japanese flags on it. And they said, well, you cannot bring that in our country. You got to go back and take that off in every single scene. He's wearing that jacket. And I believe Tom Cruise didn't want to do it. He said, forget it. And I know that Top Gun did very well in America and around the world, made over $1 billion. But I think it didn't get into China at all. And that's how, that's how petty they are. You just can't, you can't, in the few scenes he had that jacket on, it's like politics today. They're a bunch of little, like, seventh graders arguing about stupid things. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy and the stupidity of it just amazes me that it keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. But, they're really doing it. Look, they own the NBA. They own LeBron James. I mean, he's not. Yeah. He'll sit there and take a knee for Black Lives Matter, and then doesn't come back to say, oh, gee, look at all this information we have. Black Lives Matter now. It's pretty much a scam just to make a lot of money. All these people did was just profit themselves. They did nothing to enrich Black communities that need help. They just took care of themselves.
Now, the film, again, for everybody who's listening, is called Hollywood Takeover. The website, if you want to check out the trailer, HollywoodTakeover.com. So you've gotten into this, and this is, again, something I think is interesting. We've seen in the past this pettiness. I've spoken with former spies and former diplomats, and they've said the same thing, that the Chinese, when it comes to censoring certain things that they don't want to hear, certain criticism that they don't like, they will do everything they can to change that. And I think we saw that even happen with John Cena some years back. They tried to, like, destroy a deal that he was in because they wanted to change something around. And the whole thing is just so amazing to me that it's that heavy-handed and there's that much power in America, right? You would think if you're doing a deal with them over there, that's one story. But they have so much influence here. And you mentioned about it being all about the money. I get that. But is American patriotism lost? You don't have to answer that just yet because the clock's going to run out on us, and I don't want you to run out of time. But I want you to ponder that thought, Kevin Sorbo. And I want to remind the audience, the website is HollywoodTakeover.com. Hollywood Takeover, China's Control in the Film Industry. This is a brand new documentary by NTD News. It's an original documentary. And you guys had this premiere in Hollywood. How did that go over? Did you have protesters, or did it go out without incident?
Went out without incident, which I thought was kind of interesting because, they did it on purpose to have the premiere just days before the Oscars. So I think it was perfect, I thought. So, I'm hoping people support this. You've already given the website. It's Epic Times is the guy putting it out. I did another movie with them that we did a screening just a week ago at the Warner Brothers lot with 600 people, filled up the theater, and that one's called I will say the Firing Squad, true movie set in Indonesia, and that's going to come out not till August. But we got the screening; it was good.
Nice. Well, we'll talk about that as well when we come back, folks. We're on with Kevin Sorbo, Hollywood actor, and he's narrating this film, and he's a great activist. Really interesting commentary. You should follow him on Twitter. And the film Hollywood Takeover: China's Control in the Film Industry. We're going to get Kevin Sorbo's response to my question and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right? But right. You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. Rich Valdez here with you till 1 a.m., lighting up the late night airwaves. And our guest is Kevin Sorbo. You know him from Hercules and God's Not Dead and Andromeda and a bunch of other television film works. He's experienced actor. And my question to Kevin Sorbo before we left was, is there any amount of patriotism left in Hollywood that can combat the influence of Chinese money? Kevin Sorbo?
Well, I'm certainly one of those people. It's, me being as vocal as I am and being a conservative and being a Christian in Hollywood is like double leper. I mean, I'm the victim of cancel culture before it came a term. My manager and agent, we parted ways 10, 11 years ago. And that's why I formed Sorbo Studios. I recommend people go to sorbostudios.com to see the work that my wife and I are doing. We're doing movies that Hollywood used to do. And every movie I do, I got to tell you, the last 6, 7 years, I'll get another actor, I'll get a director, a lighting guy, a makeup artist, whatever, come up to me quietly like we're doing a drug deal and saying, hey, thanks for being a voice for us. And I'm always saying, well, be a voice for yourself. Well, I don't want, what happened to you? I don't want that to happen to me. And it will happen to them. But I said, look, I'm still working. Am I getting called up to do big things anymore? No. But I'm doing independent movies that have a good positive message instead of the negative hate and anger. I mean, Hollywood, look at Disney. Disney's looking at well over $1 billion loss from last year with the woke movies they put out because people are tired of it. And I'm going, wow, if Walt was around, he's flipping in his grave what they've done to his name. And, this was never the road he wanted to go down. But, if you told me 10 years ago we'd be where we are now, I would have laughed. I said, you got to be kidding me. But the mainstream media and television and movies, speaking of Walt was the one that said back in the 50s, he said movies and television will influence our youth. Well, you see the results of what's going on right now.
Man. Folks, we're on with Kevin Sorbo. We're talking about the new film Hollywood Takeover, China's control in the film industry. And you mentioned another movie that you've done that you just screened, and is that a feature film?
Feature film. It'll be out August 9th in theaters. It's a true story about, I play a guy that in his 20s, he actually killed somebody in Indonesia, on the beaches of Indonesia. He got a life sentence. He got a death sentence. And he was in prison for about 30 years and before they executed him. And it was recently as 2015 when he was executed, and they still used the firing squad. That's the title of the movie. But he found God while he was in prison. He actually preached to the guards. He preached to his inmates, and brought a lot of people to Jesus before he died. And it's just my character is sort of like the secondary story. It's a story of this Brit that ends up getting a death sentence too. And he was like probably the hardest case that my character had run up to, and felt like it was the last soul he felt he could save before he was executed. So it's a good movie. It's a very touching movie, and it's coming out in August. We just had a special screening at the Warner Brothers lot just last Saturday. So not even a week ago.
It's exciting.
Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it as well.
It's interesting. You're mentioning about getting blacklisted and whatnot, and still putting out these films, and I think that's terrific because I hear that a lot. Like anybody I've ever interviewed that was part of like Friends of Abe in Hollywood, Gary Sinise.
That was me.
Yeah, right. Stephen Baldwin, just a bunch of people that they're still working, but they all have the same story. It's like we talked about Jesus, and they heard that we were conservative, and they hated our guts. Where does this animus come from? Like, what does it matter if you'll still do the role?
I have no idea. I wish I could answer that question because I find it just absolutely insane and, once again, petty and immature. I mean, it's weird to me that, I always joke, I said if I played a pedophile Islamic radical terrorist, I'd probably win an Oscar in a movie. And, we bash Christians left and right, but God, don't say anything bad about the Muslims. And I'm like, this is crazy to me, what we're doing out there. I mean, and a lot of it's just driven now by our public schools and our universities and our mainstream media. I mean, you look at every movie that comes out in Hollywood. If you're a Christian or conservative, you're the evil person in the movie, or you're the bumbling idiot in the movie. They never, ever want to portray them in a positive light. And thank God there's people like Mark Wahlberg, who just has no fear, and he's coming out too. He's left Hollywood. He lives in Vegas now. He's going to form his own studio there. And there's more and more people just saying enough is enough. And look, if California was so fantastic, look, we escaped 5.5 years ago before the old COVID thing. We never wore masks out here in Florida. The only time I had to put one on is when, by the 7th time at the Tampa airport, the security came up and said, put a mask on or we're kicking you out of here. But, I would just have a big bag of beef jerky and just eat it in the whole plane ride, So
that's how you do it.
Oh, yeah. It's just, and now, of course, Fauci came out and said, well, okay, yeah, I guess the masks really weren't that effective. Everything that Facebook kicked me off for, my conspiracy theories and misinformation, are all true. And that's why on Twitter I said I need more conspiracy theories because mine all came true. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And tell me why you think folks that are going to, watch the film and are listening to this interview, why do you think we, as a people, as we the people, need to pay attention to the threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses to Hollywood?
Well, I think the majority of our debt, our national debt, is to China. They own America. I read, it's a couple of years ago, they bought like 450,000 acres of farmland. They're farming that land, and they're sending the food back to China. It's not in doing anything here to help us here. They're just using it to help their own countrymen back there. They own most of Africa now. I've been reading up on all these places in Africa, these countries that they've gone in and pumped billions of dollars into the economy, billions of our dollars that we gave to them. I mean, what do we keep doing in our country? We just keep printing money. I made a T-shirt on my website in Sorbo Studios. I said, why do we have to pay taxes? Can't we just keep printing money? So it's insane what our government's doing, because every government official that's honest to me behind closed doors says, hey, we take in plenty of taxes every year, but the trouble is we're spending way beyond the money we're taking in. We're just throwing money around like nothing's going to happen. I mean, you see what's going on right now. I mean, you see the prices and what people are suffering. And I was just in California, and it's still around $5.50, $6 a gallon there. And here in Florida, I think around $3 or something like that. But I mean, it's just wild to me that people, I think apathy is the biggest killer. I think so many people have been brainwashed, and they go, oh, well, what can we do? And I get plenty of liberal friends. I go, it's just this thing they're asking. I go, they ask for things all the time. That inch you think you're giving up, it's like miles now. It's like the chains of Scrooge, and the chains just building up one thing after another. And we keep dragging a heavier weight, and we just sort of give up. And that's what's happened in this country. And once again, public education, our universities are pathetic. When a guy like Bill Maher comes out about a month ago and he said, don't send your kids to American universities, that's pretty telling what's going on. People are starting to wake up.
Yeah, the folks on the left are getting scared of the left, which is probably a good thing. Folks, we're on with
you know what?
Kevin
I look
Sorbo.
at a guy like Maher, but Maher's like an old school Democrat. I mean, he's more like a John F. Kennedy Democrat. If you watch his inauguration speech, that guy, he's more of a Republican than most Republicans.
Yeah. I agree. Every now and again, Maher will stun the internet with something that sounds like, somebody on the right would say it. And it's interesting. But then he'll follow it up with saying, like, Gavin Newsom's a fantastic governor and, he should run for president. Okay. I don't trust those guys as far as I could throw them. Again, folks, we're on with Kevin Sorbo, and he's the founder of Sorbo Studios. You want to check them out and take a look at that cool T-shirt he mentioned. And he's also the narrator on this film, Hollywood Takeover, which is available on epochtv.com. And make sure you check that out today. It starts today, streaming today, Friday, March 8th. And we're coming right back to wrap this up and get some insights from Kevin Sorbo. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Happy Friday, familia. So check it out, amigos. We've got the Oscars coming up this Sunday. I know there's one or two of you that might be watching it. Most of you are yelling at me right now, throwing tomatoes at me, saying, who watches the Oscars, Rich? But I wanted to, in the theme of that, I wanted to talk about some movies that are coming out. And Kevin Sorbo from Sorbo Studios, he's got a couple of different projects going on. He's got one that started streaming today on Epoch TV. That's EPOCHTV.com. And that's called Hollywood Takeover. And the other film that he just screened that's coming out later this year. And Kevin Sorbo, I want you to leave us with a couple of words of insight and let everybody know what they can expect when they watch either of these films.
Well, I'm a big fan of documentaries. I've done about 10 of them now over the last 6-7 years. In fact, I got 3 other ones coming out later this year.
Wow.
And, it's just, I watch them on airplanes all the time. They're educational. Look, I did one called Climate Hustle 2, and Amazon would not let us show it because, God forbid, we show the other side of the climate change issue, which is just crazy. The trillions of dollars we're throwing at 1 degree every century that this warm, we don't know what the temperature was 400 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago in any given month. I mean, they can make up all the things they want, but we know there was ice age 10,000 years ago. So, to me, climate change is called weather. It's sort of the way it is. And people have just been duped into it. We've had a whole generation now of kids from grade school on that just believe that the world is coming to an end. And it's just sad what they're doing. So if you get a chance, actually, if you want to see a copy of it, go to sorbostudios.com. We'll send you a copy. So it's very entertaining. I got another one. It's a follow-up to I did the number one documentary 2 years ago on Amazon called Before the Wrath, and it deals with the second coming. And the one that's a follow-up deals with the Last Supper. We're hoping to have it done by Easter. We will not, unfortunately, but it's called Eating with the Enemy. It's about the Last Supper, and it's quite amazing. And then I spent 3 weeks in Israel before the war broke out, of course. And I was Indiana Jones. We traced the flow of the Ark of the Covenant through archaeological digs, and it's called the Throne of God, Searching for the Throne of God, the Quest for the Throne of God. So that's going to be coming out later this year as well. And I've got 4 other movies in the can that are coming out too. So I've been busy. I've been busy doing a lot of stuff through through Sorbo Studios. I've been very fortunate.
Now, let everybody know how they can keep track of all the things that you're doing. How do they keep up to speed? Where do you want them to follow you? And what's the best website to get you on?
Well, the best place is sorbostudios.com. Definitely go to sorbostudios.com. Everything's on there, all information that you possibly need of what we're doing, what's coming down the road. But I do want to give one big shout out there for HollywoodTakeover.com. Please go there. That opened today on Epic TV. And what I love about these documentaries, it just gives you another point of view. Take it for what it's worth, but at least look at both sides of the issue. We got our own government stopping people from having both sides of the issue. And, government's favorite weapon is fear, and it works incredibly well on people. And, they want us all to just be little minions, little sheep. Well, I'm here to wake up the lions. Wake the hell up. Stop letting fear control your life. It's just time to say enough is enough, and thank God more and more people are starting to do that.
Outstanding. And, Kevin Sorbo, I produced a short film 10 years ago now with James O'Keefe from Project Veritas. Did it for him. And it was a similar theme, honestly. It was called Expose, Hollywood's War on American Energy. It was an 18-minute short, and we independently screened it to be annoying at the Cannes Film Festival. And we bumped into Harvey Weinstein and whatnot. But the premise of it was somebody posed to be undercover as a oil baron from the Middle East, offering some producers that were out in Hollywood, Josh Tickell, Mariel Hemingway, Susan Sarandon's people, and she's in it too, and telling them, listen, we need you to make a documentary that's about anti-fracking because we're oil people and it benefits us if you stay with oil. And they didn't care. And these were very green people, Ed Begley Jr., who drove to the Oscars on a bicycle.
Oh, I know Ed. He's always on his bike.
Yeah, but all of them were like, sure, we'll take the money. And the guy tells them with a very thick Middle Eastern accent, he says, you can't say anything though. You can't say that the money came from me or my family or it's oil money. And they go, no, your secret's safe with us. And all that's on tape. It was a funny little thing that we did. But my point is that was 10 years ago, and it's so similar to everything you're describing with the Hollywood Takeover. So I think you're spot on. Excellent work. And folks, give Kevin Sorbo a follow. How do they follow you online?
It's sorbostudios.com is the best place to go. sorbostudios.com, and check it out. But you're right, the hypocrisy is unbelievable. They can scream for socialism, all that, but you know what? They may say socialism is awesome, but they all live a very, very capitalistic life, and they got their money. They made their careers, all these A-listers in the capitalist system. And speaking of oil, people need to go online to see what oil does, because if they want to really get rid of oil, then get rid of your cell phone, get rid of your computer, get rid of your clothing, get rid of your toothbrush and your brush and your hairdryer. The list goes on and on. I think people have no clue as to what oil is used for. And it's just amazing to me that they need to look at what it would cost. Windmills are pretty much useless. I mean, they work, but they're not. Trump made us energy independent. We have plenty of oil in America and North America. Canada's got plenty of oil, and we don't even buy it from them. We buy it from our enemies over in the Middle East, so we can keep funding our own wars against ourselves. It's crazy.
That is crazy. Kevin Sorbo, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I want to thank you for staying up late to talk about your films and everything that you're doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You bet. All right, folks, we're coming back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez. And, I don't think I've actually shared that story on the air before, but it's probably my only film credit that I have as a movie producer, if you will. James O'Keefe had done this investigation. I was working with him at the time, and that was the whole angle, was the hypocrisy in Hollywood angle. And it took so much to get all this, these people in the same room, and this back and forth. And we had an excellent undercover guy who really got in really well with the people. And ultimately, Ed Begley Jr., who was famous for riding his bicycle to the Oscars, and Mariel Hemingway, another famous Hollywood environmentalist, their producer, a guy named Josh Tickell, and his wife, Tickell, I think they were Tickell Productions, Tickell Studios, all really fine people, honestly. But they were more than happy to be quiet about taking the oil baron's money to make an anti-fracking film. By fracking, of course, I'm talking about hydrofracking, to get liquid natural gas. And it was interesting. And then they helped open up the network to bring Susan Sarandon and her management team into the fold. And I remember that at the end of that project, we needed a field producer, and nobody was available to do it. So kind of, I think my title was National Field Director of Operations. And, the buck stopped with me. So I went to the field, and the field in this situation was Cipriani, Grand Central Station, 42nd Street, right off of Park Avenue, New York City, where Variety magazine was holding this power luncheon. And I remember we needed to get some video, and our undercover guy was doing his undercover thing. So the guy I was with, he says, why don't you just go out there and pretend to be a cameraman, because there's nothing but paparazzi out there. And I said, that's actually a pretty good idea. So I went out on the red carpet there, and I wanted to get some B-roll of our guy going in and some of the other celebrities that were attending. And as luck would have it, I'm there, just filming stuff. And who walks in? Katie Couric, walking in with Megyn Kelly. And both of them were very, very sweet to me. Katie Couric rubbed my bald head. Megyn Kelly said, that's cute. And that was that. That's my claim to fame. All right, folks, we're coming right back. We're going to have more discussion. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Friday evening. It is hour number 2 of our program, and we continue our discussion. Trump welcomed the newly minted leadership of the Republican National Committee after Ronna McDaniel exited today. Mr. Whatley from North Carolina? I think it's North Carolina. Or South Carolina, excuse me. One of them. Forgive me. It's one of the Carolinas. And his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, are expected to be co-chairs, and I think they were voted in today as well. So that's that. And let's see. Some Democrats are very, very upset with Joe El Baboso Biden for his use of the word illegal alien. And he said, an illegal that killed Lincoln Riley, right? You heard that clip, and I'll play it for you in a little bit. But right now, I just wanted to mention that his Democrat friends are very upset with him. And if we have some audio of that, I'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to keep our attention on the State of the Union, because there were so many things that happened. I mean, they arrested a Gold Star dad for, shouting the name of his deceased son. Biden said we have to protect the threat to democracy. What else happened? I mean, so many things happened. And then he was caught on a hot mic, right? Biden got caught on a hot mic, and then he blamed everybody for eavesdropping. But I have a clip of that audio that I want you to hear of Biden on the hot mic. Check this out.
I was telling your secretary that I was in Jordan and Israel this weekend. We just, got to keep pushing through humanitarian stuff and all this stuff. So
I told him, maybe some people, sure, just that was good.
Again, I got the transcript, so I was reading along. But if you couldn't make all of it out, he's there having this conversation in the State of the Union with Senator Michael Bennet. And Senator Bennet says, I was telling the secretary that I wasn't sure that Israel, blah, 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 blah. And Biden says, I told him, and don't repeat this, Bibi, you and I are going to have a come to Jesus moment. And then his aide says, sir, you're on a hot mic. And Biden says, I'm on a hot mic here. Good. That's good. That made me laugh. Anyway, he went on to say that now today, his reaction to that when asked about it, why does President or Prime Minister Netanyahu need a come to Jesus meeting? Well, Biden responds with, he thinks that everybody's eavesdropping on him. Listen to this.
So why does Mr. Netanyahu need a come to Jesus meeting? What are you hoping to achieve?
I didn't say that in the speech.
What about after the speech?
You guys eavesdropping on things.
But does that show your level of frustration with him on humanitarian aid? Does he need to be doing more?
Yes, he does.
Oh, yes, he does. So there's Biden. He's a little bit of a loose cannon himself, honestly. Lacks a lot of discipline when he's on his own. Anyway, I want to jump into the State of the Union. I want to get the reaction from everything that went on, from the Lincoln Riley to the Gold Star dad, and there's plenty more of these snippets that we have. But Susan Crabtree, she's been on the show before. She is the White House and national political correspondent for RealClearPolitics, and she's with us now. Susan Crabtree, welcome back.
It's great to be on with you.
Thank you for staying up late on a Friday night. I appreciate it. Because Americans want to hear your opinions on this. This is really one of those things. I think many people heard the speech yesterday, but many people decided to go to sleep because they'd rather not, and they tune into programs like this to really get the fallout. So let's play a snippet of audio here. But before we do, what's your initial reaction to Biden and his "Come to Jesus" statement?
Well, I I'm not sure that Bibi Netanyahu is going to take very well to that. He hasn't so far. Responded to this press from the Biden administration to have a ceasefire. It's been several weeks now that the Biden administration has been pushing that, and we haven't seen a ceasefire. So, now we're talking about setting up a port to provide more humanitarian aid to Gaza. We haven't done that in the United States. We haven't set up a port like that in the Middle East for, I don't know, nearly 20 years. So I don't know how that's going to go down with a lot of the hostility we've already been seeing and putting more of our U.S. troops in harm's way, whether the American people are going to be supportive of that in the long run. We dropped humanitarian aid over this last week into Gaza. They're supportive of that from the air, but putting boots on the ground to help set up this port is quite a different matter. So this relationship with between Netanyahu and Biden, I don't think he's quite the imposing figure that that he thinks he is with Netanyahu.
Yeah, and speaking of that, this is again another I think blunder on Biden's behalf, and there was many, not only last night but throughout the administration, and one of them was, I feel, not giving enough credence to the families that were there, Gold Star dad in particular, whose son died during the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. And moreover, when he was looking up into the gallery to the parents of Lake and Riley when they weren't even there. And I feel like, who's not filling Joe in? I mean, he may not know if he's coming or going sometimes, but I feel like maybe people are lying to him. I don't know. But it just seemed like it was poorly choreographed, that whole thing. And then to have the guy arrested on camera, I think was just not a great look for him. Do you think that this is as detrimental as I think it was to have this dad arrested?
Well, as you know, Afghanistan, with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, is at the point in which was an inflection point in this administration. And you can see we do at RealClearPolitics, we have all kinds of graphs about poll numbers, and his poll numbers started to take a dive right after that. I think people were horrified that we were not keeping our promises to our allies over there, and that there were these 13 Marines that lost their lives in a chaos. And the thing that you need to realize about Afghanistan is the administration, Joe Biden, has never apologized for it. Nobody ever in the Defense Department and the Pentagon lost their jobs over that disastrous withdrawal. And we still have allies over there that we had promised them. They're in harm's way with the Taliban, searching for them, and they don't have any means to support themselves anymore, because if they worked in any capacity with the U.S. or the allied troops over there, they're persona non grata from the Taliban, so they have to be in hiding constantly. I still get phone calls from people over there that are trying to get out on my signal once a week at least, and I feel we cannot help them. And the people that we did allow in this country were not the vetted Afghanistans. It was just chaos. So everybody was just running through trying to get in and slamming through the gate. Nobody was vetted. And some of the people that really did help us the most, we left behind.
And, you mentioned nobody lost their job, and I think that's a great point that is worthy of note. And moreover, Stuart Scheller, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller, he did lose his job because he spoke up against it, right? He called out the military leaders who didn't lose their jobs and thought, why is nobody complaining about this? And he got in all sorts of trouble. And again, good for him for standing up for those 13 soldiers that lost their lives. One of them being Marine, Lance Corporal Kareem Nikui. And he was just 20 years old when he was bombed to death in Abbey Gate, leaving the Afghanistan. And his dad, Steve Nakui, 51 years old, is the guy that, yelled out, "My son's a Marine," was shouting. And Biden just stood there. And, I thought this could have been a defining moment for him where he could have said, no, let him go. Or, let him bring him up here. Like he really could have been a leader. And instead he just looked like a deer in headlights and just kept going. And it was just such a sad moment for America, in my opinion, Susan Crabtree.
Yeah, it was a moment that I remember where he was talking about that the country is safer under his watch. And it was just so, a lot of people had emotional reactions to that statement. You could call it gaslighting. You can make the statistics, the Democrats like to point to statistics that say the violent crime is going down. But if that's the case in cities, in fact, I was in D.C. just 2 months ago, and I was almost mugged in DuPont, where I used to live. And if it's different than what you're feeling, just like with inflation, if it's different than what you and your family members and your friends are feeling and experiencing, then it just feels like you get a sense of outrage, and that may be why that came out during that moment of the speech. But yes, he could have handled it. I remember even watching John McCain many years ago when people would heckle him. He would say, "Because we fought these wars, because we have a strong national defense, that is the reason why you get to have free speech and you have that right. So thank you for contributing." He would handle these hecklers in a different way.
Another time he mentioned. I remember somebody saying, or he mentioned something like Senator Obama, and the crowd booed, and he said, "No, don't boo him," or President Obama, whatever the case was. And you're right, he rose to the occasion. And I was not a big McCain fan, but it was a classy thing to do. Susan Crabtree, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I before the break, I want to. You were saying that people's emotions get built up, and I think you're right. And when you're a Gold Star dad and you're at the State of the Union and you hear that everything's fantastic, and you know that you've lost a child, obviously tempers are going to flare. And I just want, for the sake of the audience that's out there, to hear this quick clip. Listen to this.
All Americans deserve the freedom to be safe, and America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add.
Unfazed as this man is pleading with the president to be heard and to be recognized. And then on top of it, he gets arrested. Susan Crabtree.
Yeah, it was astounding to me as well. And I think they were just so focused on showing that he could pull this off without a hitch. And they kept saying, if you get heckled, I can imagine his advisors, and they probably meant by Republicans in the chamber,
right.
Just keep going, show, you have to show vigor. You have to show that you have to put down this age question once and for all. And so that's probably what was in his mind. But, I've covered Joe Biden for, I hate to say it, 3 decades. He's been in there longer than, he's been in D.C. longer than I have.
Yeah, it's going on 50 years. Yeah,
yeah, older than Senator Britt. But I covered him for a long time, and he's just not known. He was sort of like a glad hander, but not known for his decorum. Not known for, he was always had gaffes calling President Obama. President Obama.
That's him, right? Biden.
There's my own gaff. Biden, yeah. Obama, he was calling him nice and clean and articulate. I remember that when he was running for president against Obama at first, before he dropped out, and that was seen as not the best way to describe a upstanding black senator with an ambitious future.
He's smart and clean is what he said. Oh my gosh. Susan Crabtree, hang on right there. We're going to take a quick pause and come right back. And folks, we're discussing how poorly Biden handled these things. And when he got heckled again by Marjorie Taylor Greene, he decided to react, and I think it was even worse. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back with Susan Crabtree.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as would be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really.
It's about Laken Riley. Say her name.
Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border.
So that's Joe Biden, again, at the State of the Union last night. And he calls her Lincoln Riley, and then he goes on. And Susan Crabtree, in the 30 seconds that we have remaining, what do you think? What kind of damage do you think this did for him? Because I think this really sunk his ship last night, me personally.
Oh, calling her Riley, that's the USC coach. It was in his head somehow. It came out mistakenly. Then the second thing he said was that thousands of people are killed by illegals. Yeah, not thousands. We're talking about one. But if you want to bring that up, let's discuss just how many, that this is maybe not an isolated. It was just he botched this moment. He at least acknowledged it and picked up the pin that Marjorie Taylor Greene gave him on his way in. So he upset the right and the left by using the term illegal. He upset the left because they wanted him to use the term undocumented. There was an old phrase that he used. And on the right, this idea that he could take credit for this border bill, this border compromise, after he rolled back so many things that were going right at the border that Trump put in place and stopped the building of the border wall. It's not flying with the American people. And certainly that moment captured sort of where he is on the border, just the problem.
Susan Crabtree, let everybody know how they can follow you and check out your work.
Yes, I'm at Susan Crabtree on Twitter. Thank you so much. And our website is RealClearPolitics.com.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Susan Crabtree. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you for staying up late with us. Folks, we're coming right back. Your calls and more. I'm Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, familia. We've got Open Phone America coming up at the top of the hour. Make sure you give a call. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Now, I want to bring your attention to something I mentioned earlier in the 10 o'clock hour, and that is how there is a push for experimental surgeries for minors. And this push is coming from none other than the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, also known as WPATH, WPATH. And the Wall Street Journal put this out in they did an article on it, and the New York Post put it out in an op-ed about this experimental surgery for minors with no regard for the irreversible damages that are caused. And this is, again, this has been my mantra. And I get a lot of hate on this, honestly. I probably do this topic once or twice a week because I think it's important and we have to keep our foot on the gas. And every time I do, somebody calls me and says, oh, there he goes again, Valdez, running his mouth, being anti-trans. And I'll take that criticism. That's fine. It's not so much that I'm being anti-trans as it is I'm being pro-liberty for the ones that don't have a choice yet. You know, if you're 12 years old and you don't know if you're going to want to be a boy later, then let's not change you and fill you with estrogen, or vice versa. You know, little girls that go through these double mastectomies and that type of thing. This is absolutely insane, in my opinion, to allow, you know, I have children, and if they told me they had these issues, I would say, you got to wait. You've got to wait, figure it out, right? You've got to wait. There's no way we're going to have surgery now at 12 years old or stop your puberty from happening with puberty blockers. But we've heard from others in the past, right? I play it all the time. That woman from that organization known as High Tops, right? And they educate public schools on queer theory and gender issues. And her name is Stacy Robustelli. And she's the woman that famously, this was like last summer that she did it, but I play the audio all the time. She goes into schools and tries to get these kids to convert to her way of thinking. And they do this through school assemblies and whatnot. And she's very proud of it. And in the particular clip that I'm going to play for you, and if you've listened to the show before, you've heard it before, what ends up happening is that these people, they feel that they have to do what they call early intervention, and instead of focusing on grades 5 through 8, they want to go in as early as second grade. And I think that's insanity. Listen to this clip.
The most critical time to be there is grades 5 through 8 because you want to catch kids when they're starting puberty, because that's the time in which identity formation is central to their lives. However, early intervention is key. So we actually are designing a kindergarten through grade 2 curriculum this summer. And I will tell you, one of the most rewarding experiences, Nikki, we were in a local school system in an elementary school, and we were in grades 3, 4, and 5. And after we were there, 5 students went to the principal's office and came out. So we are really intentionally going into younger and younger grades.
Intentionally going into younger and younger grades. So does it make sense that the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, is pushing for experimental surgeries on minors without a care in the world? Of course it makes sense. This is a huge push, right? They're doing it in public schools. Public schools are welcoming them in. They've got kids that are making these first-time decisions for the LGBTQ community. And to me, this is a total brainwashing and indoctrination of people who aren't of age, at that age of accountability where they can make up their minds themselves. But I'm a lowly radio host, and that's just my opinion. But I want to get with an expert because I don't think this is healthy for kids in any way. And that's why we've invited Dr. Roy Eappen on the show. He's an endocrinologist and senior fellow at Do No Harm, their website, donoharmmedicine.org. Dr. Eappen, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So this is, I think, of concern to a lot of parents of smaller children, and I think just most Americans that give a damn. They hear this and they think, what's going on in our country? And we don't have a future if we destroy our own youth. Why is this happening?
I'm not quite sure. I think some of it's social contagion, but for a long time, many of us have been saying, if these children have what's called gender dysphoria, most of these kids will get over the gender dysphoria if you allow them just to go through regular puberty. For some reason, we now think of puberty as some kind of illness, as opposed to something that we've all gone through for the last 100 million years. I mean,
it's part of life.
It's really quite an odd thing. But interestingly, Michael Schellenberger has come out with a whistleblower who has sort of exposed WPATH. And there's something called the WPATH files, which you can find all over the internet. And on Twitter, it's gotten 6.7 million views. And it basically shows some of these conversations with these so-called experts. And WPATH is an organization that sort of says it's very science-based and looking for the best interests of patients, but it's not. You listen to some of the discussions these people have. They know that informed consent is a problem, but they don't seem to really care about it. They know that a lot of these children don't understand that they're sentencing themselves to lives without fertility and without even orgasms. And that doesn't seem to bother them either. There was a couple of conversations where they're talking about someone who was going to have who got cancer of the liver probably from testosterone, and even that didn't seem to stop them. So this isn't really a scientific organization. It's become it's really an activist organization. And I think that a lot of other organizations which have been using their guidelines, like the Endocrine Society, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and many others, if they're wise, will separate themselves from this organization and redo their guidelines on this, because I think the best thing to do for these children is basically to let them, as you said, to let them decide these kind of issues when they can more fully understand it. I mean, one of the speakers, you really must watch the videos. It's quite shocking. Says that how do you explain being infertile to a 12 or 14-year-old? I know many people who tell me that they never want to have children, in their 20s, and when they're in their 30s, they come back desperate to have children.
Of course.
And they don't. And this person who was saying this seems to know that and dismisses it. It's not a reason not to go on with this. So I think we really have to look at the organizations that are associated with, and already some of the organizations that were associated with WPATH are sort of getting separated from in the United Kingdom. I'm wondering what's going to happen in the United States and Canada, because I think a lot of these organizations have, for instance, the Endocrine Society, which is the organization of endocrinologists in the United States, but has members from all over the world. Their guidelines from 2017 are basically WPATH guidelines. 6 of the members of that committee who made the guidelines were from this organization. So there has been ideological capture of these organizations by WPATH, which is basically a activist organization. The studies of these procedures and of giving medications to these young people show very poor evidence. There have been multiple systematic reviews in Finland, in the United States, in Florida. The Germans, in the UK, the Swedes have all come out and said that there's very little evidence for this. And you have to show real advantage to doing these things when there's a danger of harm, and there is a danger of harm. Because a lot of these things, which they say are reversible, are not. Some of the WPATH members in some of these comments know that if you give a younger person, a Tanner stage 2 boy, these medications, and then most of these kids will go on to puberty blockers because that's what happens in these clinics. they will never have fertility, and they'll never have an orgasm. I mean, those are sort of basic human rights,
Right.
According to me, at least.
I'm in total agreement with you. And I think it begs two questions. One being, why are some of your colleagues radicalized in this direction? Because it does seem like a radical approach to deny people those things in life. And B, what's the push behind that radicalization? Folks, we're going to continue straight ahead with our guest, Dr. Roy Eappen. He is an endocrinologist and senior fellow at Do No Harm. And a third question when we come back about something you mentioned earlier. It's a follow-up on testosterone. I didn't know that there were links to cancer. And that's one more reason not to do that. So, folks, stick around. We're going to continue this conversation again with Dr. Roy Eappen from the Do No Harm, donoharmmedicine.org. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We continue our conversation with Dr. Roy Eappen. He's a senior fellow at Do No Harm, and he's an endocrinologist. And Dr. Eappen, we left off with my question to you, which is why some of your colleagues, in my opinion, are, in my opinion, lacking ethics and being radical in their approach. Why do you think that's happening? I mean, you don't have to agree with my assessment that it's radical, but this split from your way of thinking and theirs, where's the genesis of that coming from?
I think a lot of it is because they are activists. Marcy Bowers, one of the persons talking about in those WPATH files, is a transgender person themselves. And several of the others are also transgender people. And I think they've become true believers.
Did they become physicians to promote this cause?
No, they were physicians before. But
now they've become activists.
Now they've become more activist. And I mean, look, being an activist is not necessarily a bad thing, but you also have to look at the science, and you have to look at possible harm.
And the Hippocratic Oath, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we seem to ignore that in many senses of the word these days. But yeah, we had. I think, and I think a lot of my colleagues are feel afraid to talk out because there's quite a cancel culture when it comes to these kind of things, and people will call you transphobic and anti-LGBTQ. I happen to be gay myself. I think that I think, and I know transgender people who also oppose this. I have many gay friends who oppose. We don't want to hurt children.
Right.
We love children too. There are nieces and nephews in our own children, so we care about children too. So we have to do what's best for children and adolescents, and I don't think the evidence points in the direction that things are going. A lot of these surgeries, as you say, are quite experimental. A lot of them have complications, and the follow-up care of a lot of these children, adolescents, and even young adults. There's a conversation in the WPATH files of people talking about young adults in their 20s and 30s who have regrets And they kind of dismiss it. They kind of just dismiss it. I really think that we have to consider because the other thing is we're doing a bit of a vast experiment, because these are large numbers of people are going to be on these medications for years and years to come. I don't think we've done very good follow-up on that to date. And, we don't know what's going to happen in 30 and 40 years. There have been small numbers on those on these treatments for that length of time.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. If you're a girl and you want to become a boy and they put you on testosterone, I think about guys I know in the gym that take testosterone. They only do it for like several weeks at a time and then go back to it, and it's like a whole process that they have to go through. They can't stay on that for life, or their doctor won't allow them to stay on it for life. So how is it that we authorize it for other people to do for that long? And I just, you're an endocrinologist, so maybe you could answer that when we come back. Folks, we're coming right back with Dr. Roy Eappen, Senior Fellow with Do No Harm. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, we continue with Dr. Roy Eappen. And doctor, with all this talk about long-term use of testosterone, A, is that feasible? And B, is there a link to cancer? How does that work out?
So the answer is we really don't know. We do know that it can contribute to cancers in men. But so we don't know what will happen when we use cross-sex hormones, which is why we really need to follow all of these people on these medications very closely to see what's going on, because there have been some sort of anecdotal cases of people developing liver tumors and other cancers. So we don't know the answer, and we need to follow up on that. But then that's once again, why are we doing this in children until we know better the answers? The systematic reviews so far have not shown advantages in children. I think once you've reached the age of majority or the age of maturity, that's your decision. But you need to have informed consent. You need to have very close watching of the safety of these things. And I don't think we're doing that. And I don't think we're doing our patients a favor. And we need to look out for the best interests of our patients.
I think you're right. Doc, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. And if you could quickly let everybody know how they could keep up with you on the internet.
Well, I don't really have an internet presence, but I would suggest that they go to the Do No Harm website and look up Michael Schellenberger, who has put the...
Got it. That's donoharmmedicine.org. Dr. Roy Eappen, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you for being with us. Folks, Open Phone America coming up right now.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you this Friday night. And this is Open Phone America. This is where you get to join our late-night national town hall conversation. Let me give you the number. It is 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. And I invite you to call. We've got a lot on the table that we've talked about this evening. We talked about experimental surgeries on minors. We've talked about the State of the Union and Joe El Baboso Biden. And we talked about the infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party, their money, their influence in Hollywood, our films. But I want to get into something else this hour, and we could talk about those things if you want when you call. But what I want to get into right now is a study that just came out of, I'll tell you where it came out of, but it's being reported in Reuters. But listen to this headline, 60%, that's a big number, big number, of patients with clogged arteries have microplastics in their arteries. Yep. That's a small, minute amount of plastic that rubs off onto certain things. I've heard that it's on paper plates and that plastic coating. I've heard it's on tons of different things that stick to your food and you could eat them. I've heard some people question whether this has to do with the vaccine. Does that produce that type of thing inside of you? I don't have the answers to that, but I'm going to share this article with you because plastic lodged in arteries may be linked to a higher risk of heart disease and death. Obviously. Heart disease and death sound inevitable if you have plastic in your body. Now, these minuscule pieces of plastic that are lodged in the fatty deposits that line our arteries may be linked with lots of things that lead to stroke and death. And this is according to Italian researchers that reported on this week. They studied 304 patients who underwent procedures to clear a major artery in the neck. 58% of them were found to have microscopic and nanoscopic jagged-edged pieces of plastic in the plaque lining the blood vessel. Isn't that something? Including polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride containing chlorine. Dr. Raffaele Marfella at the University of Campania in Naples and his colleagues, this is what they're reporting. This is bombshell stuff. Those with plastic particles in their carotid artery plaque had 4.5 times higher risk of experiencing a heart attack or stroke or dying during the next 3 years. Researchers found that after taking these individuals' other risk factors into account, this was very dire. Patients with microplastics or nanoplastics in their plaque tissue also had high levels of inflammatory proteins in their blood, also known to play a role in atherosclerosis and heart failure. Oh, boy. Polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride in various forms are used in a wide range of applications, including the production of food and cosmetics containers and water pipes. The report was included in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it notes that such microplastics have been found in drinking water, large range of different and diverse foods, cosmetic products, and in the air. You can breathe these stupid particles. Earlier studies have so we're talking about climate change. We should be talking about plastic in the air. Jeez, forget wearing a mask for COVID. You got to wear a mask for plastics. Let's continue. Other studies that were conducted earlier detected various types of microplastics and nanoplastics in multiple tissues, including the colon, liver, spleen, lymph node tissue, and placenta. Animal studies have shown that these plastics can cause toxic effects. While the new study can't provide can't prove that the plastic caused these patients to have these adverse conditions, it is the first link to the tiny particles with cardiovascular disease outcomes in humans. Dr. Philip Landrigan of Boston College, who was not involved in the study, wrote an editorial that accompanied the report And part of what he said was this is a breakthrough discovery. The finding of microplastics and nanoplastics is a breakthrough discovery. Amongst some of the questions that this finding prompts, he says, are whether exposure should be considered a cardiovascular risk and how exposure can be reduced. So I guess they're debating whether it's an environmental risk or a cardiovascular one. I'm going to go with both. In a 2022 report on a dietary and inhalation exposure report, these tiny pieces of plastic were reported by the World Health Organization and noted to overwhelm those that studied this, that these plastics do not belong in the environment, and that the measures that they're taking right now need to be strengthened in order to mitigate exposure to more people. So yeah, if it's flying in the air, we should be containing that. I don't know how we would do that, but this is fascinating to me. The low cost and convenience of plastics are deceptive, Mr. Landrigan said. In fact, they mask great harms, such as the potential contribution by plastics to outcomes associated with atherosclerotic plaque. Excuse me. So this is their finding. The clogged arteries that are causing heart attack and stroke could be from plastic that you're eating or breathing. That's nuts. I'd love your thoughts on that and everything else. We've got a lot of people on the line tonight, so we're going to get to everybody. We've got Arizona, Michigan, Montana, Manila, Philippines, twice in a week. I love that. Boise, Idaho as well. We're going to get to all of your calls. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, you heard the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to get to your calls. Let us start in Arizona. We've got Pat listening on richvaldez.com tonight. Pat in Sedona, Arizona. What's up, my man? How are you?
Just fine, Rich. You know what? Another great show, and I finally had to call in. I've been listening to you all week, and I just felt this was a great subject because it's just not a United States subject. This is a world subject. This has to do with everybody in the world. And I'll tell you, I'm so sorry you have to take a lot of bad emails about this. But you keep doing it. You just keep bringing it up because, I mean, you have two daughters, right? And anybody has children. This is a serious issue. That a child should not change who they are biologically until they're at an age and have experienced enough in life to make that decision, because that is a permanent situation. I don't care what anybody said. This is permanent. And the idea of cancer, I never thought of that. The idea of cancer. My goodness, sir. You know, you're a great man. I mean, you're fantastic. I listened to you last night when you talked about your weight fight. Man, you bring your person into your show. You're just a great talk show. I mean, Jim Bohannon, he is probably smiling down on you right now because you have picked up the torch and you've carried it on. And sometimes you get razzed for it. You get some people who don't really know what they're saying, and that's not sad. I mean, you're good. You're really good, and I just want to thank you. And this subject about these transgenders is something else, my friend.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I think this is an incredibly important issue, and the reason why. Somebody brought it to my attention, and I pushed back a little bit. But the more I think about it, and the more research I did, the more I said, "Man, this is really bad. This is obviously brutal on a child, right?" And we went from a point in history where if a child raised their hand, went to their parent, and said, "Hey, I think I'm a girl," or a little boy would say, "Hey, I think I'm a girl." Little girl, "I think I'm a boy." That this was once known as gender dysphoria. It was considered mental illness, and it was treated differently. Today, it's no longer considered mental illness. It's more like, okay, you have a gender dysphoria. Well, we've got to fix you, and we've got to give you the opposite gender. Whatever gender you think you are, we're going to affirm that gender and give you that kind of care. And while it sounds fluffy and flowery and nice, it's not nice at all. You're taking a kid that is having a crisis mentally, thinking that they're something other than they are. And many people go through issues like that, and the answer is never to make you become the thing that you think you are. But that's what these doctors are doing, and that's what our last guest was pointing out, was that none of this stuff is proven. That this is a big experiment, and I'm sure whoever is promoting this idea is somebody that is part of that experiment, saying, you know what? For 10 or 20 years, we're just going to let everybody pick their gender, and we're going to see how it goes. And if it works, it works. And they're throwing things up against the wall, and they're seeing if it sticks, and it's coming at the cost of our children. And I think it's a bad thing. Honestly, I think it's a very bad thing to allow a child to make this choice. Now, the second part of this was somebody brought to my attention. They said if you allow children to choose their gender before they reach the age of accountability, you are, in effect, creating a precedent to make major sexual decisions at a young age. And it's only a matter of time before the people that we used to call pedophiles and child molesters, we now call them minor attracted people to sanitize it. It's only a matter of time before Chester, the child molester, who is a MAP, a minor attracted person, decides that little Susie can decide for herself at 8 years old if she wants to have sex with, Chester, the child molester. And if we can codify that into law by statute, well, then there you go. We've now just legalized pedophilia. All because we're allowing this to happen now with the gender-affirming care. So it's a very slippery slope that I think causes a lot of harm. And that's why I always give kudos to the Do No Harm folks, donoharmmedicine.org, because they're out there fighting a fight that's very unpopular. Most people don't want to hear that. Even what I'm saying right now, I know most people don't want to hear. Most people want to go, "Oh my gosh, love is love. Love trumps hate. You're a girl. We embrace that. Welcome, Sally." And I can't applaud that just because I think it's wrong. And we have to allow people to make their minds up for themselves when they're old enough to make up their minds. But we can't sit here and pretend that kids are fully in charge of themselves. I mean, I have my own kids that are both legal adults, and they still don't know everything that's going on. I'm an adult, and I don't know everything that's going on, right? So how could we really entrust that to younger and younger people, Pat?
Yes, I mean, that's why there's laws for drinking, there's laws for guns, there are laws to go and fight for your country, there are laws for running for president. I mean, age means something. Getting a roadmap and a experience of life is very important in a lot of decisions that have meaning in people's lives and everybody's life. And I think these people that, like the doctor was talking about, they were doctors. They are doctors, and that one is a transgender. Now, is this person trying to marginalize themselves as what I am is correct? Well, great, that's good for them. They probably made the decision when they were adults, not as a child.
Right, 100%. I think you're right. You have to make that decision as adult, not as a child. Pat in Sedona, Arizona, listening to Rich Valdez with an S.com. Thank you, my brother. Good to hear your voice. Thank you for your kind words. That was very nice of you. Let us go to Jeff, Lansing, Michigan. We have time. WILS. Big shout out to WILS. We're talking about microplastics. Go right ahead.
Once again, it's great to talk to you, Rich Valdez. And that's
Thank you, sir.
Valdez with an S, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. You hit on a topic that is really close to home with the microplastics. One of my daughters has a master's degree in microbiology and a few other things that she's way smarter than I am. So I can't even tell you. But she has 3 or 4 published reports on this exact same thing. And
on microplastics. What's the big takeaway that she's found?
Well, and then whether you go through your tap water, I expect bottled water is horrible. It's worse than your tap water.
It comes in plastic.
It's in your river water because of chemical plants and whatnot. It's in your lake water. It's pretty much it's in your toothpaste. It's just almost everywhere now.
Wow.
As far as what it's causing because of that, I don't know. But yeah. I tell you what.
Any word on like a filtration? Did she mention any filter or how to minimize microplastic ingestion?
Yes. Well, using a filtration system, it can work. But she knows much more about this. And if you're interested in pursuing this any longer or any more, I'd be more than happy to get you in touch with her because she knows.
What we'll do is we'll get you in touch with Tom, and Tom can get the information from her. We can maybe book her to come on the show and do a follow-up to this story. I was thinking, who could we call? Not too many scientists I know that know about microplastics, but that is a interesting area. And I was dating a girl that was always talking about this, and she was like, there's microplastics on this and on that, and I was like, okay, but I mean, now I'm learning about it. I'm realizing, I knew she wasn't making it up, but now I realize it is as severe as she was making it out to be. So kudos to her. She's a smart girl, just like your daughter. Thank you for the call. Big shout out to WILS. And folks, we're coming right back. We got your calls coming right up. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. We're going to continue our discussion with the callers and a couple other things that I mentioned that I wanted to get into. Let me see. Anyway, I'll tell you when we come back. Don't go anywhere, folks. It's me, Rich Valdez, coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we've got a story of a missing Florida mom who was rescued after being trapped in a shipping container for 3 days. Now, the sound of banging came from a locked shipping container, which led Florida police to a missing woman who had allegedly been trapped inside of this steel box for 3 days. We have a clip of Marlene Lopez, 52 years old. She seemed disoriented and unable to explain what happened to her when she emerged from this metal container. But listen to this.
So what happened?
I don't know. I was in one place and I found in another.
There you go. Now, she says that she was in one place. She was just found in another. She was wearing a leather biker jacket and tights, and she mumbled while walking to the ambulance to be taken to the hospital for a checkup. And just, amazing. I mean, I don't blame her. These metal container shoes, it's Florida. I'm surprised she's not dead. it could be like an oven, those metal boxes. The owner of the shipping container told, let's see what this is, the News Channel 6, that he found a lighter and a pipe inside after Lopez was rescued. So maybe she went in there thinking, oh, I can get high in here. I don't know. Maybe that's what he wants her to say. Who knows? And maybe she was high when she went in there. I have no idea. Lopez was reported missing on Wednesday after a coworker called the police to raise concerns. And I don't want to malign her character. I'm not saying she's a drug addict. I'm just saying based on the information in this article. And her coworker was concerned about her well-being. She had failed to pick up her son, but the woman hadn't been seen since Monday. So they called the Cocoa Police Department. And, yeah, she looks like an upstanding citizen in the picture they put here. While detectives were interviewing Miss Lopez's family and checking on locations she was known to visit, they learned she had been found already. She had been banging on the door of the shipping container where someone heard her, unlocked the door, and found her. Lopez was uninjured but was hospitalized for an evaluation and dehydration. Tyler Somberg, he's a businessman who owns the shipping container where she stayed for 3 days, said he first spotted the woman walking around the area on Monday night. He said that he locked the container on Tuesday afternoon and did not hear any sounds coming from within the container. Somberg said he believes Lopez may have wandered inside the container and passed out. Wow. She looks very disheveled in the news footage when she's going to the ambulance, and rightfully so. After being, trapped somewhere for 3 days, no food, no water. That's crazy. She'd been in there since Monday night, the police say, and obviously that was difficult for her. So I had to share that one with you because I don't hear about that every day, getting locked in a shipping container. Anyway, I want to get to your calls because, we've got a lot going on here. Let's see. Where do we go? We go to Becky, Bloomington, Illinois on WHOW. Becky, have you ever been locked in a shipping container?
Well, that's not the story that I heard.
No, but that's the question I'm asking you.
No, I haven't. But
Me
the
either.
story that was told was that she was dumpster diving, and she fell in and couldn't get out.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. This is one of those walk-in, though, these walk-in type of things. So she should have been able to walk right out, but it's very odd, very, very odd. I'm hoping that she doesn't have a drug problem and that she didn't go in there to get high or to be high and got stuck in there. I'm glad she's alive. And tell me a little bit about microplastics and potential connection with cancer.
Okay, I got a friend who has been coughing and coughing and coughing continuously, and I heard her on the phone coughing. And the deal is that she saved some of it and took it to the doctor, and they asked her why she was eating plastic, that she was coughing it up. And she was not eating plastic. She does not know what it is. So they're taking her into the hospital, I don't know if it's next week or the following week, and the deal that they told her was they're going to go in, I don't know how this is done now, but they're going to clean her lungs.
Huh. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm glad they're able to help her, but the whole thing just sounds very, very interesting to me, and concerning. Like this plastics thing is kind of out of control. I'm wondering how we start to beat that. Man, Becky, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, but it's good to hear your voice. I haven't heard from you in a while, so thanks for the call. Big shout out to Becky in Bloomington, Illinois on WHOW. Thank you, my friend. Where do we go from here? Okay, looks like we're going to go to Frank, our buddy Frank. He's in Evergreen, Montana on KOFI. Frank, you want to talk about Biden and the State of the Union? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I noticed he's a little on the anemic side, and looked like he probably eats too many cereals.
Plastics.
He'd probably have maybe too many Lucky Charms, and those cereal packages, they have what you call high density propylene, ethylene, and it's when you're getting into shrinkflation, smaller boxes, you got to eat more. So you're taking in more plastics My God, it's when you're in your second childhood, you shouldn't be in politics.
I agree with you. And you shouldn't be eating plastic, although a lot of little kids like to eat plastic. Frank, like always, you nailed it. Biden was eating plastic, and that's why he was acting the way he was. Frank, thank you, sir. Big shout out to everybody in Montana on KOFI. And I want you to hear a little bit of Biden, now that Frank brought him up. Biden made this obscure comment about joining together to defend the attack on democracy. I just didn't really understand it. Listen to this.
History is watching, just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you are here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended.
All right, so that's Joe Biden at the State of the Union, and he went on to say, the threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth. I tell you, he's gaffe prone. And look, I talk for a living, so I get it. I say things all the time. I remember once we had a newly elected congresswoman who I'd met, and I consider a friend, Anna Paulina Luna, when she won that election. And there's a singer, a Spanish singer named Paulina Rubio. And I think like 4 times I called her Paulina Rubio instead of Paulina Luna, Anna Paulina Luna. And she corrected me like twice. And I kept doing it without even knowing I was doing it until like later I re-listened. I said, oh, my goodness. It's probably why she hasn't come back on the show. But she's doing a great job in Congress. Anyway, my point is Biden was all over the place with this speech. He was angry, and then he was lost, and it just didn't seem like the unifying State of the Union that we normally hear. It kind of felt like a campaign speech. Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ, what say you, sir?
Rich, how you doing tonight?
Wonderful, brother. Good
I just wanted to tell you. Yeah, thank you. Well, I had to go back real quick. You know, I actually got stuck under a house one time being an electrician. I was pulling a piece of wire back on my back, and I'm a skinny guy. So I always got the good jobs of going underneath houses, going up in the attics and so forth. So I got clear back in there, and I couldn't get back out. My dad went to the store to get the hardware store to get some materials, and I got stuck, and I had to have the fire department pull me out. No kidding. Dad couldn't get me out. They had to tie a rope around my foot and pull me out because I was so far back in there. I was bound to turn to get that wire in there. But anyway, what I want to talk about, you know, with plastics and everything, being in the electrical construction industry, we used to have, we ran into asbestos, that would be wrapped around the old pipes on the boilers. And we done a lot of work, you know, back in boiler rooms and so forth. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was Joe Biden. And that, like you just said, that sounded more like a campaign speech. I mean, when the Democrats come out and they're shouting USA, USA, you know, and then he says, you know, he starts talking about Ukraine, you know, and Russia. You know, you're supposed to be talking about the State of the Union, stupid. The United States
our
of America.
union.
The
Ukrainian States of America. I know, man.
Well,
It seems like they're getting all the money.
Yeah, and then one more thing, he talks about taxes. Well, I think they better take a look at Hunter Biden. Wasn't we looking at him, you know, for his taxes? And you know, he's talking about, we're going to bring back manufacturing. We're going to bring back manufacturing, man. You know, but he says, we're going to tax them the hardest we can. Well, what manufacturer do you think is going to come in this country when Biden says, oh, we're going to tax the hell out of them, you know? So they're going to say no. You know,
I agree with
we're going to go over here to where, Yeah,
That's
so
exactly what people do, and they do it time and again, and it's look, taxes are kind of like the actor we had earlier, Kevin Sorbo. He said, if we can print money, why do we collect taxes? I like that philosophy. And Paul, I got to take a break right here. Going to come right back. We're going to get to Gil in the Philippines and the rest of the calls. Don't go anywhere, folks.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And, Trump was live, not tweeting, but live truthing on Truth Social last night, releasing videos. I'll play a clip of one of those when we come back on the next break. But right now, I want to get to your calls. A lot of people have been patiently waiting. Let's go to Manila, Philippines, and check in with our buddy Gil. Go right ahead.
Hello. Hola, amigo. Okay.
Hey, brother.
One quick comment about President Biden. Is there anything to the rumor that hair plugs cause brain damage?
If they are, he's screwed.
Yeah. Well, you know the famous story about his hair plugs, I suppose. But anyhow, what I wanted to talk about is Ukraine and how to finance the war. I'm a student of history, and the Second World War was the greatest conflict in the history of man. We were involved from 1941 to 45, and that's when the war ended. When do you think the debt was paid to us, the last one from the Second World War?
I think I read an article on that, and I think it was in the last within the last 10 years. Am I right?
2006.
All right, there you go.
Is what
Closer.
I read.
Yeah, I remember reading something about that, and I thought, man, that took forever to pay back.
Yeah, well, that's how they financed the war. So, you've got all of these rich countries in NATO that aren't there to protect each other. They're there so the United States will protect them. And Donald Trump is right that, they have to participate more. But they ought to have bonds. They ought to be selling euro-denominational bonds for the war in Ukraine. And Ukraine should have a foreign legion where they bring in experienced military people from other countries to fight as a unit against the Soviets. That's the kind of stuff that Vladimir Putin understands.
Right, strength. Absolutely. You have to be strong. You have to get in their face. You have to show them that you're not kidding. And I agree with you, Gil. And, between the two of us, you're the one that served in Vietnam with Bohannon. So I trust your opinion on this. But I think you're 100% right, and it's right in line with my thinking. If you allow Putin to sense or smell or perceive even an inkling of weakness, he's taken it and he's running with it. Gil, lovely hearing from you. Thank you for the call. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Folks, we continue with our open phone America because I don't want to leave anybody hanging, and we're down to one last segment. Where do we go here? Kevin, Jamestown, New York, WJTN. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. I'm pretty new to your show.
Welcome.
I found the topic very... Oh, thank you. I found the topic very interesting. Although I was intrigued about your topic on plastics, being that I work in the plumbing industry, I've always said, I prefer copper over PEX. But moving on from that, the Joe Biden speech in the clip that you played earlier,
yeah,
is it just me, or do you get an eerie feeling that Joe Biden was offering some truth in saying that let's defend democracy or...
Yeah, well, he messed up, right? At least, but you're right. Was it a Freudian slip when he said we have to defend the threat against democracy? And I agree with you. That is their meal ticket. That has been their meal ticket since January 6th. And if it's kind of hard to think. I think a lot of people probably listen to me and they think this guy's off his rocker. He's all over the place. But if you think like a Marxist and you create the problem so that you can control the reaction and then recommend a solution, working backwards that way, and that's how they do it, I think it makes all the sense in the world. So this is what happened with January 6th. Yeah, there were some people that were out of hand, but moreover, you had a bunch of people from the FBI that were in there rabble-rousing informants and whatnot. The police stood down. They brought people in. Just a lot of things were so out of the ordinary. And they do that for the sake of creating this event where they go, okay, look at this. This was crazy. This was an attack on democracy. And they start jailing some of the old people that were just walking around, or our buddy Brandon Struck, who was shooting a video outside, and they put him in jail for weeks at a time in solitary. So, yeah, I think there's truth to that. And I think when Biden says we have to defend the threat against democracy, he wants to keep that idea alive and well, keep it going so that they can continue to say, look, Trump is a threat to democracy. And if he becomes president, you won't have freedom. And the sad part is we've already witnessed what it's like to not have freedom. We've had the freedom of the press unfree. When they had the Hunter Biden laptop, they were called Russian disinformation. We've seen the president of the United States be spied upon. And we're looking at a candidate for president of the United States. They spied on him last time as a candidate. This time, they're trying to put him in jail for 400 years with 91 felony counts. It's absolutely insane. Kevin, great assessment. Folks, we're coming right back. Shout out to WJTN. Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, folks, it is the speed round, and we have 2 minutes or something like that, maybe less. Let's go to Jeff, Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. What is the source of microplastics, Jeff?
It's often from the plasticware that we use when we eat, that we choose. We scrape dishes. We have plastic dishes that we scrape.
Yeah, you're probably right. I've heard it's paper plates, and again, from this article, it could be airborne. So I think you're right on track with that. Jeff, thank you for the call from Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL, Biden country. Let us continue very quickly. Jane, Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. What is in our vitamins?
Hey, yes, my vitamins. I looked. The vitamins have a plastic that comes from candles. They use that wax.
Oh, wow. So it's like wax, candle wax that holds that stuff together. That's crazy, and that doesn't sound healthy either. Jane, thanks for the call. The music means they're kicking us out of here. Joe in Salem, Arkansas on KSAR, and Paul in Boise, Idaho, listening to richvaldez.com. You're right. Biden sounded like an angry old man, and gender dysphoria is messed up. Take care. God bless. See you Monday.